Oh, there's somebody here. I just heard her voice.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Oh my God.
Up.
Oh my God.
What's that? Hang on, is it?
No, I gotta figure out how to.
An echo.
All right, that's better. I think. We'll see how it goes. It's been a while since I did it. Oh my God.
That's something we could do for a whole meeting. Yeah, have that echo effect.
Okay, we don't. I think it should be good now. It's just I don't know. I think people will hear us.
No thinking involved. The chief. Let's see if we got that.
I can't remember how I did it last time. Hi, I see Karen out there. Karen, can you hear me? Uh-oh, that's not good. Yeah. Wait, let's see. Oh. So let me turn this off. Hi, Karen. So, oh no. I'm on a different setup here, so I have to figure this out.
I wish I could help. But I can't.
All right. Actually.
There's us and the Chinese government. And he likes to, attack the Green New Deal. What we actually have is the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure bill.
Okay, it's just 6:30 now. I have to figure this out. Okay. All right, so it doesn't sound like it's feedback too much. I don't know. Okay, we'll start in a little bit. I have to turn off my. Here's where it's turned off. So what do you think, Ed? we got a few people out there.
This will be like Bob and Ray with sound effects.
I think I have it now. It's been a while. It's a new setup, so I had to figure it out.
What do you mean by new?
Well, because before we had an iPad, and it didn't have to. I had to connect with this way now because the other way it stopped working, and nobody could figure out why. Why it was doing that. So I had to do it through a laptop, and it's okay, but it's just that I had to get used to it. The first time I did it was the Siegel presentation in November. That was the last time we met. So.
Okay. Do we have anybody signing in?
Yeah, we got a few people out
Maria Falconetti, I see.
Yeah. Now, I think I asked before out there if you can hear me. This is a new setup for me for presenting. But if you can hear me, just put something in the chat, and then and I'll look. So sorry about the technical difficulties we're having.
Paul just joined.
Yeah.
Abby Ames says it sounds great.
Oh yeah. Okay. Great. Okay.
Vicky Garland says we hear you.
All right. Yay. Okay. So we have a few people out there. I think there's like 7. But anytime you're ready, I guess. It's hard to tell. I think Terry was going to be here, and she might come in.
Maria says she could hear us.
All right, great. John Maltby might come in. We don't know yet because he has to see how he's feeling. But we don't know that, so I guess we'll just get started. We can wait a couple of minutes, I guess. We're only at 6:33.
Well, let's start this way since we have people who have tuned in.
Okay.
One of the things that's an interesting part to do is to ask if anybody has a question before anything is said on the subject.
Yep.
Such as you mentioned that Reverend Maltby might be here, but it might be that somebody who is listening in doesn't know the connection between Reverend Maltby and Reverend Miller.
Okay.
And therefore, we might want to provide a little background before we get started.
Okay.
So good. My question would be, is there anybody who is listening in who has a question that they want to start sort of as an introductory thing?
And if you can unmute if you'd like. I mean, if it's easier that way, you can unmute your mic and ask your question. It was just for a little background. We should say about Maltby's been in the community now for since 1963, right? And
Yeah, quite
So
a
he-
few years.
So he's a reverend of the Miller Memorial Home and for the first aid squad, and he did so many things. So we'll get to that later, but because I included some of his information at the end, towards the end of the presentation. So okay.
You want to start with the description of that photo?
Yeah, this is actually a postcard. This is a postcard. I think it's from the 40s, and it's a picture of the way it looked back in those days. It doesn't look that much different now, but we can get to that too. I have to let a couple people in.
Right. The thing I'd like to comment on, this is called the Miller Memorial Church. And it was not up and running when Reverend Miller had his congregation in South Brunswick. It was named after him later when they built this church and decided to call it the Miller Memorial Church. Some people think that John Miller had a hand in this church. In other words, he was either the pastor for it or he had some influence in building the church, but he did not. He was gone by, I believe it's 1895.
1895, right?
Right, and this church was erected several years after that.
Well, at first it was the Episcopal Church.
Yeah,
Do you know what year the the actual building was built? This
I do not, but it was, it could have been, that, in other words, that could have been up as an Episcopal church while Miller was alive.
right.
And then the building was taken over later. The daughters may have had something to do with it, but not Reverend Miller.
We'll have to look into it because I couldn't find anything about when the Episcopal Church, St. Paul's, right? I
Yeah,
couldn't find anything about when that was established, but it could be that it's there. I just didn't find it, so that'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a good number here. I think we can start. So this is just the church. So what we're going to do is, how do you want to introduce it, Ed? I mean, I have the next slide is the Theological Seminary. I don't know if you want to jump into that or you want to say something
yeah,
more.
I can lead up to that, so you could show that.
Okay.
And I'll give the back, because I have a chronology.
Okay.
So we're basically going to follow the chronology. Now, this is a picture of Nassau Hall, which was the College of Princeton back in the old days.
College of New Jersey, yeah.
Right, College of New Jersey, and then some buildings were added on. But this was where the classes were held in the very old days, and the residents, the students who were residing would be in this building. Now, John Miller was born in 1819 in Princeton. He was the 9th of 10 children, and he was the son of Dr. Samuel Miller, who was a professor at the Princeton Theological Seminary. This is very important because because the father was a professor there. This is a goal that John Miller had, and that was to succeed his father and to become to have a chair in the Princeton Theological Seminary. Okay,
Which
that was his goal.
that was his goal, and what happened?
Right, he didn't make it.
Okay.
And there is, of course, that's part of the controversy, and we'll get into why he didn't make it. But that was one of his primary goals in his life.
Okay.
Okay, now he graduated from Princeton College in 1836. And so therefore he was destined to become a minister. And in his early years, he was an itinerant minister. Didn't have a church per se, but went around and preached at various churches around Princeton and so forth. And then later on, of course, he's going to move down south.
So the churches that we know about, there was Plainsboro, there was
Well, that comes later,
right.
because
Oh,
those are his churches.
right.
Okay,
Okay.
but he doesn't develop those right away.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so he's preaching, like he could have preached at the Cranberry Presbyterian Church. He could have preached at the one in Kingston. He was moving around, and New Brunswick too.
But they
But we don't know exactly the dates and so forth where he was preaching, but he was moving around and a guest, and he was quite impressive in his preaching. Okay. Then I'm going to have it moving south. I don't know what you have next.
next I have it's just a seminary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, this is the Princeton Theological Seminary.
After that, I have this the map of Maryland. You want to talk
Yeah.
about Maryland? Okay.
Yeah. Now he moves down south. Basically, what he's trying to do is establish himself as a full-fledged minister, and to try to become the minister of a church, a Presbyterian church, rather than to circuit around and so forth. But when he moves down to Maryland, he's doing about the same thing, going about here and there and so forth. I don't know if you have a picture of Margaret Benedict, his first wife.
Oh, I have a picture of the one that he wrote. That.
Okay, well, keep it in order.
Yeah. No, I had McDowell.
Oh, okay, that's his second wife.
Yeah, no, I don't have. I couldn't find one with her.
Okay, so he's down in Maryland in the early 1840s. And he weds Margaret Benedict. I don't have the exact year, but in 1847, he becomes the pastor of the Second Presbyterian Church in Petersburg, Virginia. And his daughter Margaret is born around that time. In 1850-55, he becomes the he's associated with the Presbyterian Church in Philadelphia. Do you have a picture of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, the first Presbyterian Church in Philadelphia, and this is on West Arch Street, as I understand. So of course it's still standing. And so he's establishing himself as a full-fledged minister. And as you see, he's bouncing around. He's traveling. He goes from Princeton down to Maryland, Philadelphia. Now he returns to, this time he goes down to Virginia.
Hey.
Howdy.
Hello.
What?
We've already started. Reverend Maltby has arrived. He's in the
Are you
house.
talking about Petersburg, Virginia,
Yeah.
possibly?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You want to sit right here?
Yeah.
I could not find my copy of Raymond Eckels' book.
We'll try,
Oh, yeah.
I
we'll
thought
try
I
to
might
help
have,
you
I
out.
thought I might have given it to Seal some years ago. I hope I did.
You may have. You
But-
may
so
have,
it might
because
be in
we
there
have
somewhere.
In the archives, we have stuff. Yeah.
I was tied up. So I had, for example, last week I had 4 medical doctor visits in 3 days.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I think it was. That same driver, the same one's driving me to 2 medical appointments tomorrow. I had one today, and I'm not well. There's a lot of stuff's not getting done. And we had the fireman's 100th anniversary dinner for the fire department.
Oh yeah.
For
Yeah.
Monmouth Junction. I did the opening prayer for that. But I'm not alert and up and around and doing stuff.
This might be what you're talking about. That's by Eckels?
Yeah,
There you go.
that's the guy I can't find.
That-
Nobody can make me a copy of it?
yeah, we can make a
Yeah,
copy.
we can make a copy. When you
Definitely.
can't find something, call up Randy.
So,
That's him.
so Ed, do we want to introduce John now, or you want to save it till later? How do you want
No,
to
we can introduce right away.
Guess what?
What?
That hour and a half I went searching for this, it took him 15 seconds to find it.
Yeah,
There it is.
we'll make you a copy.
Please.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll make a copy.
Here's your other books, John.
Oh,
And we have to
thank you.
introduce
This is just
Terry
for your
also.
FYI.
Yeah.
That's what the church kind of became over the years. Some of that. Oh, this play, yeah. The type of stuff we did. A country western.
Okay,
Actually,
we're getting organized here a little bit. Just hold on for a second.
And our sister church was Plainsboro.
Yeah, Route 1 was a little challenge getting
Oh,
over here.
wow.
Oh yeah.
Hey,
It's always fun. It's always fun.
Seal would have liked this. I don't know if I ever gave it to her. Maybe somebody here would. That's the play that I did
Okay, well, we can add that.
for Bible school.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
we just-
were a Shakespeare too.
Here,
huh?
John, I'll take your jacket.
Oh, yeah, well, see, I
Here.
have two, I can go back. Two woods diverged in the, two roads diverged in the yellow wood. You could have, the woods could have diverged too, but they didn't. And
Robert Frost.
Frost, well, and of course, and they're, the one I really like now is on passing through woods on a winter night. What was it? Whose woods these are? I think I know.
Oh yeah.
And then-
on the woods
but
of a
the,
snowy evening.
I can't stay because I have I have promises to keep. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep them
Miles
out
ago,
before I sleep.
yeah.
I mean, it's stuff like, I grew up on that.
Strong fences make good neighbors.
Oh, hey, I bet you got to say, strong fences make good neighbors. And remember, a want ain't a need.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We're on the same page. I'm from Cornell. Where are you from?
I'm from Williamstown, Massachusetts.
Well, you can come by it honestly. I would live almost right across the border from Connecticut and Danbury, the biggest town
That's
where I
not
live was
deep enough. Yeah.
Danbury. Where do I
Gotta be
sit?
from the
Wherever you
woods.
want, John.
I'll sit right here.
Okay.
So anyhow, in my copying, I wanted to be a vaudeville performer when I was a little guy. I started playing piano in 1939, like that. So I'd copy other people's stuff. Well, who's on the radio back then? And we didn't have TV. Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy.
Ah,
And I believed at that time, I'm like 5, 6 years old in the 30s. I thought he was a real kid. I didn't know he was a dummy. I found that out later. That made me one. And then, but the character that I got to imitate was his nemesis, W.C. Fields. What's written William Claude Dukenfield, his actual name. You knew that. And they got W.C. Fields out of that. And I copied stuff I just off the air, like the snake, because some of my best friends are snakes. I was a little rattlesnake who saved his life by biting the ruffian on the fetlock while he stuck his tail out the window and shook his tail for a constable. Therefore, my saving W.C. Fields from the marauder who had burst into the home invasion thing. So I would steal that outright. I give credit though. I always attribute. So the other side of it was the Shakespeare. So how would W.C. Fields do? Once more unto the breach their friends once more, or close the wall up with our English dead. Wait a minute. There's nothing so big. The peace is nothing so becomes a man as modest stillness and tranquility. But when the blast of war blows in our ears, then stiffen the sinews, summon up the blood, disguise fair visage with hard favored rays, etc., etc.
yeah.
We were supposed to do Shakespeare in oral interpretation of literature. I didn't say it's literature, not literature.
Literature.
But I just had to be a wise guy and do it in my W.C. Fields voice. And the professor, he was not pleased. So I can't help it. But it's hard when you're preaching and you've done so much WC Fields, not to slip into it accidentally.
Yeah. I like kids as long as they're boiled.
Yeah.
You bother me, kid.
Okay,
What's
shall
my kid-
we pick up where I was?
You were at the
Yeah.
point of his.
I was at the point, he's down in Virginia.
Oh, now we're in
We're
Philly.
talking about Reverend Miller, John Miller, Terry. That's the subject.
Oh, by the way, his wife's name,
Well, there were
Margaret?
two. There were two.
which was the one that was the daughter of the governor?
We're getting to that.
Ah.
Coming
Getting
up.
to that. You're a good lead-in. You're a good lead-in. Okay, okay, we're moving on from Philadelphia down to Virginia.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, now, he resumes his itinerant preaching, going around from church to church, developing popularity as a preacher. And the first controversy that he gets involved in, and he becomes a controversial figure for a few reasons. The first controversy is his marriage, because his first wife passed away. He marries Sally Campbell Preston McDowell. That was her full name. She was the daughter of Governor James McDowell of Virginia. I don't know if you have that.
Yeah, I have one of the books here that mentions. Oops.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Okay, there's James McDowell. Now, the controversy is this.
Yeah.
Sally is a divorced woman. And the interesting thing is, she is divorced from the governor of Maryland, Governor Francis Thomas. I don't know if you have a picture of him.
Yeah, I just to go back one. Oh.
Ah.
Uh-oh. Hold on.
Technology
There he
is so good. Okay,
Yeah.
now this is her father,
Now, who did you say now?
Sally.
Thomas.
Oh, that's
Her ex-husband from.
This is James McDowell, the father of Sally.
No, I don't have it.
Okay. I thought you did. I thought I saw
I had
it.
Governor Francis. Yeah, is that who you're looking
Francis Thomas, yeah.
for? Yeah.
There he
we go.
is.
There we go.
Okay. Now, go back to the McDowell.
To one of the
Go back to the McDowell.
That one.
No, the McDowell, the father.
Yeah, you just had it.
Okay.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Now, take a look at his visage, how he looks, okay? Very distinguished. He sort of has a rough frontier type look to him, okay? But he looks like a nice, decent, honest man, right? Now look at his eyes, okay? Now go to the next governor, the governor of Maryland, Governor Francis Thomas. Okay, now look at that evil squint. Now, this is the man that she divorced, but he's a governor of a state, right? This guy was a nasty guy. He was physically abusive to her and verbally abusive to her. And in those days, it was very difficult to get a divorce. Compounded is that is a minister who marries a divorced woman.
I've been there.
This was a scandalous thing back in the day. Okay, now Reverend Maltby is old enough to be called back in the day as well as right now.
When I started, I could not marry a couple if they'd been divorced. We had to get permission from higher up.
There
the
you go.
presbytery,
There you go.
and present a case and a petition that it'd be allowed.
Right.
And I had to turn couples down. This is back in the early 60s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is over 65 years ago.
And this would be part of what we call, and there's a lot of different controversies going on within the faiths. Like the Southern Presbyterians and the Northern Presbyterians, the Frontier Presbyterians, and the established elite on the East Coast Presbyterians. And this happened with the Baptists, this happened with the Dutch Reformed and so on. We'll get into that. But back at this time in the late 1800s, there were these schisms, these splits, and there were certain beliefs and so forth and principles that were enforced that may not have been treated as severely with the other groups. Anyway, John Miller steps into this by marrying Sally Campbell Preston McDowell. Okay, so we then move on, and I believe, let's see. Oh, then show the picture of Patrick Henry.
That's back, I think. Yeah. There we go.
Okay, now the connection here is that Susanna Smith Preston is the granddaughter of Patrick Henry. Oh, no, she's the granddaughter of Elizabeth Henry, who is the sister of Patrick Henry.
Okay.
So that Preston not only marries somebody of significance, and we're talking about the elite families of these border states. Okay, we'll call Maryland, Virginia, Suffolk, these are all the border states, because we're going to lead up to the Civil War. So what happens is John Miller marries into a very influential and established family, but there's the controversy that goes with it because of the divorce. Okay, now he has to deal with that as he's a minister, as he continues to be a minister. Okay, so what happens is we get to the Civil War. Now he's down in Virginia.
I have a chaplain.
Oh, okay,
believe
good.
that's a
Good, you
chaplain, but
might get to that.
He might have been a line officer also.
Yeah, I'll get into that.
Ah,
Okay, so get rid of Patrick Henry. He's gone by the time of the Civil War.
So
There we go. Now, this is this is our substitute for John Miller being in a Civil War uniform for the Confederate side. This is John Bannon, an Irish Catholic. This is quite ironic. Jesuit priest who served as a Confederate chaplain. This is to give you an idea of what a chaplain may look like back then.
yeah.
He's a story in himself. Anyway, the story is that John Miller was ardently on the side of the South during the Civil War. And not only was he a chaplain, but he may have been a captain of an artillery unit in the Confederate Army. So he may have seen action. This is the second controversy, because he's going to move back up north. And at the end of the Civil War, he's going to have to take an oath of allegiance.
Right.
He does, but the controversy is still there. You know, it's sort of like somebody swears to tell the truth, and they tell the truth, but there are people out there that say, nah, that guy, is a little suspicious. It's like if a criminal or a con testifies for somebody in a court of law. Can his version of what happened be held as true, or did he hear something in jail about the person who's been accused of a crime? So you have that problem that he's coming up north after the Civil War with already two controversies behind him.
Do you know why he came back north?
He came back north because he wants to get that chair in the Princeton Theological
Okay,
Seminary.
so that's his
So,
goal.
yeah,
Okay.
when he saw that opportunity. Okay, now, by 1871, he's in Princeton. Now, he's not preaching as much. He's now doing research and writing. And this is going to be the build-up to the third controversy and the most controversial thing about him, his ideas and theories and so forth. I don't know if you have a picture next of Princeton.
Princeton was earlier. But I had Morrisville next because that's how we had it on the sheet.
Oh, okay.
The seminary started about 1810, if I remember.
I can go back to Princeton. It's just the picture we showed at the beginning of the slideshow.
Yeah, that's okay. Morrisville, Pennsylvania. That's Trenton in most of that picture, and then Morrisville's down the bottom. Okay. So I'll talk a little bit about the Princeton thing. Now, in his writings, he comes out with a writing called Fetish in Theology. And there's some very controversial things that come out of this. And I'll try to do my best, and Reverend Maltby will be the expert here on this thing. But one of the things, these are called Miller's three denials. And what he's doing is trying to arouse an awakening, try to stir people's minds about the faith. Now, keep in mind, this is the Presbyterian perspective of the Protestant movement in Christianity. Okay. He denied the Trinity and promulgated the absolute deity of Christ with the emphasis on humanity. Christ was the human embodiment of one God. God dwells in man. This is, now I'm no expert on it. I'm just reciting what I was told by the sources that I checked. I found that the second point was the most interesting for me. The soul dies with the body. It rests on the grave until the resurrection. The body and the spirit rise together on Judgment Day. So you're moldering in the ground, soul and body, until Judgment Day. Now you can imagine the controversy that would spark with conservative Presbyterians. And where was their seat of power in New Jersey? New Brunswick.
Oh, New Brunswick.
New Brunswick. Right. And of course, when he's cranking this out down in Princeton Theological Seminary is aware of what he's writing and so forth, and they get word to New Brunswick, and they haul Reverend Miller in for questioning here, okay? The third thing, Christ had inherited a corrupt nature from Adam. Miller denied this and said instead, Adam's sin was imputed in Christ. He needed no spiritual regeneration, just ransom. Now I'm saying stuff that I really don't understand that well. And maybe you want to enlighten us on these three things, or did I cover basically what it was?
You introduced another subject we didn't mention, but I can recall so many times doing a funeral somewhere or somebody outside my own immediate parish, and the Baptist or other very fundamentalist religion was primary in that person's life, and they were talking about a resurrection and salvation and so on. That's divisible into three: pre-trib, mid-trib, and post-trib.
Oh.
When do we come alive again? Well, I'm a pre-tribber right away. As soon as your soul is called home. No. You got to wait for the 1,000 years. No. You got to wait beyond that, because you're going to bring the ones living up to them, and then the next group of the martyrs. Then there's an order,
yeah,
and they don't agree with each other. And that's now. Well, the last time I have it.
It's still going on.
It's still going on, and this in the late. No, this isn't in the 20th century anymore. Excuse me. I'm kind of frozen in 1999.
That's all right. You're a living time capsule.
Yeah, something like that. You understand that, though. I mean,
my wife says I understand.
The point of view is embedded in some people, and what kind of? Now, was he exposed to a lot of Baptist preaching from other people living in old southern Petersburg or wherever they were, Richmond or wherever, but that's not exactly Princeton.
Right.
So what was he hearing, and was he reacting the same way? I feel guilty when I disagree with this dear little old lady who believes that, and I'm burying her daughter or her husband or something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Right. It's sort of
people that disagree in the Grange about seemingly simple matters to settle, and they get mad at each other.
Yeah.
Because they don't see eye to eye. And we're peacemakers, Terry and I.
Right. Well, here's the thing. You bury somebody, it's the end of their life physically and so forth, right? And we have the RIP, rest in peace.
Mhm.
And you got this controversy
Yeah.
going on. And the controversy can lead right up to the person's deathbed. And they're oh, this and that and so forth
got
like
it.
that. And instead of, well, let's calm down and let's pray over this person and have them rest in peace and go off into eternity with a peace in their soul, peace in their heart.
A good send off.
And right, and these things happen. It's unbelievable. But you brought up an important point, and that's what we're going to lead into. The splits in the church, whether you're talking about the Dutch Reform, you're talking about the Episcopalian, you're talking about the Baptist, whatever the case may be. And an important thing to this is the difference between the East Coast elite. They get the moniker of conservative. And what John Miller was doing was shaking up the conservative point of view. And the conservatives had the power, especially on the East Coast, and therefore he was wrong and they were right, and he should be punished. Okay? Where does he get this from? Like you said, maybe from Virginia, whatever. It really comes from the West, because you had the Cumberland Presbyterians.
Exactly.
And the Cumberland Presbyterians were now known as the liberal Presbyterians.
You know, when my family and I stopped there at the place where the company started, there's a church sitting there that is a replica of the original one. And they were the preachers who crossed over the mountains and were like the pioneers of the faith going west.
Right.
They didn't continue what they learned back east.
Right.
They were not a replication of Princeton West.
Right.
They were their own breed.
Right.
And it was 1810 that church was started. So where did Miller turn to when our little Monmouth Junction church, the independent, was a evangelical church of Monmouth Junction.
Mm-hmm.
It was not denominational. It wasn't part of the Presbytery. His other churches that he started.
Right, we're going to get into that.
Okay.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, now the Cumberland Presbyterian Church doesn't join the main Presbyterian Church till 1906.
Exactly.
So they're in existence for almost a century. And caused all sorts of situations where the Cumberland group, as I understand it, had their own seminary.
Yeah.
And so they were developing their preachers to go to the West and so forth, Ohio and around Kentucky and that sort of thing. Meanwhile, the First Presbyterian Church, where they had the Princeton Theological Seminary. Now, what does this all mean? John Miller is not going to get to be a professor in the Princeton Theological
Be
Seminary.
lucky to hang under the
That's the
ordination.
bottom line.
Yeah.
Now, what the Presbytery does, New Brunswick now, they make a decision. John Miller can preach, but he can't have his own church. So he can be another round of itinerant preacher going around and around. So what does he do?
Indian Gap.
He gets the idea of developing his own little churches around. And that's where Monmouth Junction comes in. Okay, so now we're up to the point where he's going to try to develop his churches. And I don't know what you have.
Well,
next.
we have because we mentioned the Baptists before. We have up there.
Yeah.
And then we have,
Okay, yeah, you have this split, Arminius and Calvin. Yeah.
Dutch.
And
Yeah.
let me see what I have on that.
You go up to Somerset County, that was all Dutch up that way.
Yeah, well, the Dutch Reform had their own split. And they had their conservatives and they had their liberals. And that was a big, with the 6 Mile Run Dutch Reformed Church. And they drifted to one and not the other. They were drifting away from the conservative. And then with the Dutch Reform, that goes all the way back to the Netherlands.
Yep.
And so the conservative was coming out of there. Well, for the Presbyterians, the conservative was coming out of the Princeton Theological Seminary in New Brunswick. Okay, so anyway, what Miller does is, if he can establish 5 churches, then he can have his own, what would you call it? His own congregation, his own.
Well, it would be a cluster congregation. We'd call it a presbytery.
Right, he would have his own presbytery. Okay, now, he gets almost there.
Yeah.
He gets 4, but he doesn't get 5. Now, when you showed that thing of Morrisville, that was the one
Yeah.
he didn't get. That fell
He was
through.
working on it, wasn't
Yes, he was working on it. And what he did was he had one in Plainsboro. That was the most successful one.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a picture of a Plainsboro church.
There we go. Yep.
Okay. Now, he also had one in Princeton, and he had one in Monmouth Junction, and he had one in New Brunswick. Did you have a picture of the one, of the area of New Brunswick?
Yeah, let me see here what we have for New Brunswick. Well, here's the one in Plainsboro.
Right.
This is now that's not there anymore, but the cemetery is still there. There's the Plainsboro.
Yeah, he took over.
He took
that was moved, wasn't it, and became the
I think
adjunct to the church building.
I think they knocked it over. I don't think it's there
Maybe they
anymore.
did.
But the cemetery is still there, and it's it's taken care of by the historical society.
Yeah,
Actually.
Miller got a hold of that though before he got a hold of the little church in Monmouth Junction.
Right.
Little, I think it was Methodist.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah,
Right?
the thing is, when you say church, you're thinking, congregation, maybe 400, 500 people. But he was averaging about 20 to 30 people in one of these churches.
I mean, 19 out of 20 were farmers.
Yeah. And a curiosity for me would be somebody who was in the original Miller Church in Monmouth Junction, who may have passed along some of the things that he was writing about. Because here's an interesting thing about Miller. In his preaching, his sermons stayed away from the controversial things he was writing about. So what he was writing was not coming through in his preaching. So the people who were listening to him as he preached were not getting the controversial things. They were getting the main line message. And he was careful with that. And he was a popular speaker. He would attract, when he went as a guest preacher somewhere and so forth, he would attract quite a crowd. They even have some news articles about him. I think New Brunswick had some, that he was speaking at some place and was very well received, that type of thing. And he had some quirks too, idiosyncrasies. He had a nervous tic when he was preaching. It was somewhat distracting, but his message still got through. Here he is. He's got his 4 churches. He's trying to develop that 5th, but it falls through. He doesn't get it. So he didn't make it. And what happens is he runs into some financial troubles in the 1880s. And by 1895, he's passed away. Now he has his daughters.
Yep.
He has the 3 daughters.
Margaret?
Yes. And they're quite popular, but they're Southern belles. They were raised in the South as kids and so forth. And as Reverend Eckels talks about, they were sort of hopeless when it came to doing wifely chores, like cooking and cleaning and things like that. They were accustomed to having servants do all that. Right. And they also needed to be escorted around. They weren't really into the modern type of thing, where you get your own transportation and all that. A lot of things had to be arranged for them. But they were very adamant about keeping the churches going, especially the Princeton one and especially the Plainsboro one. The Monmouth Junction one somewhat, but they had their hearts on those too. And they did the things like the Sunday school and the choir and that sort of thing. So that after Reverend Miller passes away, the sisters try to carry on the traditions that he was trying to establish. Well, of course, by the time you get to the turn of the century, what you're talking about is getting back into the fold. So that the Cumberland Presbyterian Church wants to get back into the fold. Miller's church members want to get back into the fold. The Southern Presbyterians and the Northern Presbyterians take a little longer for the Southern Presbyterians to get back into the fold. But that's the at the end of the century, that's what it's all about. So that by the time you come around to our day and age, what we think of is the First Presbyterian Church, and it's the one thing. You don't have these splinter groups like you had back in the previous century.
I have some slides of some of his books up here since we're talking about it.
Yeah,
And
let's
then
check those out.
now these are they're actually, this is from the Theological Seminary. And they're online. There's a lot of things you can get online. You can read some of the
Take
text.
notes on this, Terry, because I want somebody in my family to do that for me. I'm no good online.
Well, we can get you started.
We have young people that do that.
We can get you started.
That's what they're here for.
Yes.
That's how they prove their
Speaking of
existence.
young people, I want to give you an example of what you were covering in that period where the daughters are kind of developing into the leaders in the church, which eventually they take them over and shepherd.
They try.
But Mrs. Emens from our church was already a grand dame. Her husband's still living when I came here as their pastor. She was born in 1888 or 86.
The Emens go way back,
way back.
pre-Revolutionary War.
Her parents were Mershons. That farm just burned down last year.
That's
That was
right.
her family's farm.
Yeah.
I got a picture of her and her kid brother riding on a horse in a pony cart from like 1905 or
You have the picture?
it was a newspaper picture. I've got it.
Oh yeah.
I got to find it for you.
I'd love to make a copy of it. I'll give it right
It's
back.
in the
So-
newspaper, you might.
What she remembered
Maybe.
about the period in the 1890s with whichever Miss Susan or whoever it was, no, it was Miss Elizabeth, I think is the one. I can't remember which one was ours, because it's named after her. Our church was named after her, not after him, after the daughter. She would organize picnics. I mean, very meticulously. And there were people that carried the stuff out to the edge of the woods and the field and so on near the railroad tracks. And the children would have these wonderful picnics, outdoor picnics. But the sister, the lemonade was exquisite. And this is Mrs. Emens telling me about this once, she died, I guess in the 1870s. I mean 1970s. Maybe 80s. But
John, when you say down by the railroad tracks, are you talking at the end of
well,
Pierson
no,
Street?
I'm talking about the
Where the overpass is.
no, the branch, the Rocky Hill branch. It's a single
Oh,
track.
yeah,
The
okay.
Rocky Hill branch.
Oh,
And there's chemical factories there now. But
where
she,
the oil coal place is now.
no,
Behind- yeah.
Oil Co was
Curls around there.
was
That's
Ridge
South
Road,
Brunswick.
not Ridge Road. I'm talking about going west.
Oh,
And
okay.
that road, that's the last time you had stoplights on Route 1 for a railroad train. And all traffic was stopped, the train would go, and that's going to Rocky Hill. That was a branch.
Huh.
And, but I could tell, but I just want to talk about that because she had nothing to do with that happening. But that's where the children went.
Mhm.
And Mrs. Emens was a historian, exquisite lady with telling you stuff from back in those days.
Mhm.
And I soaked it up while I could. Because she was around. We had a couple other people around it then too, like railroad engineers, so that's another matter.
Yeah, it's interesting, the circuit, when Miller had these churches and so where they're making the rounds, he went to Plainsboro in the morning, Monmouth Junction in the afternoon, and Princeton in the evening. And when he could, sometime he would go to New Brunswick if he could fit it in. But he went around in this circuit. So when he was preaching at a church, he was doing it at least 3 times a day, 3 different venues.
Okay.
And you'll notice in that the Morrisville thing is not mentioned, because that's the one that he didn't get.
Well, I just wanted to point. This is something that's actually available on Amazon, so if you can, you can buy it. But this is a little preview of it that I looked at, and I couldn't help but he doesn't pull any punches here, because if you read about here, this if Muhammad had confronted pure Christianity, the world had been spared Islam. So he's not pulling any punches about what he thinks there. And this just jumped at me when I looked at the when I looked into the you can go through. So yeah, he's definitely got something to say. Let's put it that way.
Yes, he's sticking it to a couple religions there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's talking about He's talking about the Voltaire and Catholicism. So yeah, he's really this preface really is a good little microcosm about like what he thinks, So that's why I put it up there. And the other one I have here, this is actually from the New Brunswick paper, and it talks about how he was having trouble with the church. So this is an actual article from 1878 about how he was having trouble and he was going to be, I guess, I don't know if it's excommunicated is the word or not, but he was definitely...
He was suspended.
He was having issues there. So it was interesting to find these things digitally in the newspapers because, it's 130 years ago or even more. And then the other one here, it talks about the same sort of thing. He's convicted of heresy, and it says right there in the article about heresy. But then later on, he's preaching again, I guess in New Brunswick. So this is the timeline I wasn't sure of. I didn't really understand that because this one was 1894, which is a year before he died.
Yeah.
So it looks like he was out, but then he had this other advertisement. It was a note in the paper.
No, he's not out. There were people of high standing and so forth in the church who wanted him to be banned from preaching.
Right.
But the Presbytery did not make that decision.
Okay.
What they said was, you can't have a church, but you can go around and preach wherever you're invited.
Okay, so that's probably what this was in New
And
Brunswick.
there were some churches that wouldn't let him preach.
Okay.
But there were others that invited him in to preach. So that's why that says. So he was in limbo because he wasn't completely banished from the church. And remember, it was a suspension. So the suspension was going to last for a while. It wasn't a lifetime suspension. Okay. The problem was that he was adamant about the way he looked at things and the way he saw things. And that was the way it was going to be as far as his philosophy and theology was concerned. As far as his preaching was concerned, that was a different story because, as I say, he didn't bring the controversial things into his sermons when he was talking to the people. And so he led these 2 lives. One was, you can't be in the Princeton Theological Seminary. You can't be a professor there. Okay?
His father was still alive, wasn't he?
No.
Father
passed away.
Do you know when?
I don't know. I don't have the date. I don't think I have the date now.
Hey, before you change that.
Dr. Samuel Miller.
WCTU?
Because Miller Chapel is named after him. After Samuel Miller.
I don't know.
Yeah, but
I have to look it up.
so he still had this opportunity to form his churches.
Yeah.
But they had to be outside the mainstream of the Presbyterian organization.
They would have all been Cumberland at that point.
You have to go back
Yeah.
to that.
Cumberland stayed in, I could say, for another decade.
Yeah, he was associating himself with the Cumberland movement. Yeah. So in other words, he would be considered a liberal and opposing the conservative. Okay.
John, do you know what the WCTU means?
Women's Christian Temperance
Temperance
Union.
Union.
And the group that I
Okay.
belong to, that they spun off, YTC, the Youth Temperance Council, and we took the pledge with our youth group when a returned missionary from India came and his wife was the organizer of the YTC and the Falls Federated Church that I was a member of.
You notice it says good singing, not good drinking. Very important.
There was an article that I hope I got it from Mrs. Emens, talking about one of these services where he preached, and such and such lady from, and I know her name, but was she one of, the guy worked for, well, most of them worked for the railroad, Stewart's mother, one of that, they were all musicians in that family. And this lady had sung so beautifully at this particular one of these services, that her father, not her father, their pastor spoke at. Why can't I think of their names? But, it's an easy one. Well, it'll come back. It'll come back. But the newspapers, yeah, that was a social event, a church service, and a guest preacher. Usually, if you had a tea afterwards, they would say, "Who poured the tea?" we still could jokingly carry that tradition on at Miller Memorial, and we would have the men be the ones who poured, and they would wear a frilly apron and white gloves and a cap.
Yeah.
One guy's a truck driver, and when he left us to go down south, we had a farewell, the passing of the urn, I think it was called, a ceremony in church where he passed the urn on, the coffee urn on to another young truck driver guy. Who would wear the apron?
Right.
And,
Yeah, the Presbyterian Church was big on grape juice, not
oh,
wine.
yeah.
Right, and the Catholic Church, of course, the wine, that was a big thing.
Mm.
And
Teetotal. YTC and WCT.
yeah.
Well, what did WC feels of us? I mean, he came pretty powerful WCTU down with rum in the Middle Ages. You couldn't leave unless you went with two other guys. My father was usually the one in the middle, and so I could do. I stole that from him too. I'm sorry, I apologize.
He's moldering in his grave.
Yes.
Turning over. Okay, do you have any other pictures?
Well,
that
the
we
other
can
one, I had the
comment
Dutch Reformed Church.
on? Oh, yeah.
This is Franklin.
Dutch Reform. Well, as I say, I have notes on the ones in the area. I'll see what they match up with.
That really looks good in that picture.
Yeah, right.
These are the notes I have for the Dutch Reformed Church. They reject consubstantiation. Theirs is based on Calvinism. Belief in predestination. God chooses before one is born. The Bible is the only source of truth. Faith is, I don't know, I said faith is not what one does, and grace is not based on merit. Those are the tenets of the Dutch Reform as far as what I found out. Now, whether I'm right or not, I don't know. I might be stirring up controversy by saying these things because I just got notes from wherever I
I
could.
think they probably have something like our doctrine books. I just had the word in my brain. My brain's a little slow today. Not Book of Common Worship, the Theology one. What do we call it? The Standard Book of Theology. You have it in the Catholic Church. Every one of us has our own book of beliefs. Catechism.
Oh, yeah, catechism.
And,
Okay, that's what you have to go through to be a member of the
yeah,
church.
but the beliefs that are expressed in the Catechism
Right.
are probably what you just said to us. What that's drawn from that.
Yeah.
They didn't just think of it all of a sudden.
Right.
It's been around a while.
Right. Well, the question I'm trying to raise, if I mention these other ones, would they have accepted Miller's beliefs, ideas, and so forth, or would they have rejected them? And so when I read these things, and you think about what Miller said, there's his three main points. Would he be welcome at a Dutch Reformed church? I would say no.
Yeah.
I would say no. Now I have the others. I don't know if you have some pictures.
Well, what I have here is I had just Dayton because it's in town.
Okay, well, the Dayton Presbyterian Church would go along with the, what New Brunswick, whatever New Brunswick was saying.
Yeah, and then I
Dayton would
had
go
this
along with
picture
that.
here, which isn't, it's just about when the steeple fell off. They
Oh,
put it back
I
on.
was there that day. Boy, that tornado was something else here.
Yeah, well, see, they
I was
didn't,
in the school, it was just up the road when it hit.
they didn't accept Miller's, views. People got it.
Gotcha.
See what happened?
That's it.
And
Okay,
it wrapped that steeple around the preacher's special wagon.
Yeah, there it is. That's right.
Something like that.
See, he wasn't there. He
Or
missed
what-
it.
No, it was his canoe, whatever. I was there that day.
yeah,
We killed him.
Yeah.
But no, the rest of them, I have some with Barnabas, and just because of their churches in the area.
yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about it, but I mean, I have them in the slideshow.
Well, I have the St. Barnabas Episcopalian. And you know, that comes from the Anglican, the English church.
Right, right.
That's King Henry VIII's church. So, you know, and rebelling against the Catholic Church. Basically, Episcopalian, belief in the Trinity, sacraments, communion, baptism, inclusion, mission. Bible contains all for salvation. Okay, so that's like the Dutch Reform. The hierarchy of leadership, they have a hierarchy that imitates the Catholic Church with the archbishops and the bishop and that sort of thing. So that's what they would mainly differ with the Presbyterians with that hierarchy. They probably would not accept Miller either. Okay, and I would venture to say the Episcopalians were probably more conservative than the Presbyterians. Just my educated guess. Okay, do you have another one?
Well, we have it when it, I have the.
Oh, okay,
rapid
this
fire.
is when I had the fire.
Yeah, yeah, and then I just wanted to point out that the cemetery is still there next to the Burger King.
Right.
Um,
Notice the landmarks we have to
St.
use
Barnabas
now.
Cemetery.
Yeah,
Oh, here's Burger King, and here's the cemetery.
About 4 or 5 months ago, I had a trip to New York State and back with the guy who was the expert on that whole thing, was a part of it. Mayor Belizio, Howard Belizio.
Oh, yeah, Howard.
He's
Yeah,
88
yeah,
now. And he knows that church inside and out. He's been part of it all these years.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's got approvals and he can disapprove of things, that guy, but he's worth talking to. And I had a shorter, he's been my driver to my doctor several times.
Oh.
Or go by us, such and such took place here. So, but he's got a lot to say about that cemetery.
Yeah.
I've done.
Well, as far as I know, the Spillators take care of the cemetery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of spillators in there. You can
They
see-
tried to
I was
put
at
up
that-
a stone thing in front of there with a gate, and some vandals came in and messed it all up. So now they have a split rail fence along and made it nice and simple,
Yeah.
you know, to try to discourage people from going in there and messing up the grave sites and all
Yeah.
that. But it's in a tough location,
it is.
and people
Yeah.
still use
Yeah.
that. They come up and make a U-turn
Yep.
around.
It's a
Use that,
busy
they're not
spot.
supposed to do that.
It's a really busy.
Okay,
spot.
do you have another one, Randy?
Yeah, we have fresh ponds.
Okay, Fresh Pond. Now, Fresh Ponds, they would be what, in the liberal sphere. And this could be a place where Miller could have preached,
It was a Methodist, I guess you call it.
like an
mission,
AME.
like yeah.
Yeah,
To start with, Bob Turton is still living, but not. I mean, he's been very ill. He's had a couple of strokes, and his wife is ill.
right.
So he's he'd be there at the Grange if he could, but he'd be running the Grange if he
His
could.
daughter helps him out. Yeah.
They're having a rough time.
Right, and I would say the church in that controversial area over in Little Rocky Hill,
Mhm.
where Somerset County.
Oh yeah,
South
yeah, we
Brunswick.
talked about
Yes,
that.
yes,
And
Zion.
very upset about that. You know the old road? Have you ever been on the old road?
Does it go along the river?
It goes along Route 27.
Along
parallel,
Up to 27.
yeah.
It used to be 27
cuts a
until
chunk.
they
You know when
moved
you go down the hill?
Yeah.
Okay, well, as you're going on that hill, there's a thing called the old road. That's old Route 27. But the thing is that Randy and I and Terry are very upset about is that part, in other words, on the east side of Route 27, right, should be South Brunswick,
Yeah,
That belongs to Somerset County.
until you
That's
get the
part of
old road.
Franklin.
In the west-
Old
west
road
side.
is.
Yeah, that old
Yeah.
road, that whole sliver
Old
there.
road is this township border.
Right, so the yokels who live on the east side of that old road
There's
are South Brunswick.
Mhm.
The yokels on the west side, not even to 27 yet, where the firehouse is,
Little Rocky
where the
Hill.
nursery is,
Yeah.
right, at Little Rocky Hill there, that is Franklin
That's
Township.
Franklin.
And a lot of people don't know that.
That's true.
And so anyway, there's an AME church in there. I
Yeah.
don't think they're holding services now.
No,
But
no.
that would be another place.
Ray, come on. Roll, come on, Ray. He was a leader in there. He passed away not too long
This
ago.
church here, the Mount Zion.
Yeah, and his wife was a certified preacher.
Uh-huh.
Ray Burnett. Ray Burnett.
Oh, okay. The
And-
Burnett's, yeah, they go way back
Yeah.
too. Yeah, that one of the swamps, Burnett Swamp,
It's named after the family,
way
huh?
back, go way
Wow.
back, yeah. And that's African American and white. The
You know who was a big crossover guy in that church? Kimple, James Kimple.
Oh, yeah, the
first
superintendent of
Presbyterian
schools,
school.
yeah.
And he supported
That's-
the church
that's
very well. He
interesting.
attended there.
Well, anyway, that church is in Franklin Township.
That's it, frankly.
Yeah, that's not in
It's
South Brunswick.
right- You go a few feet and you're in South Brunswick.
Well,
You cross the road, you're in South Brunswick.
right, well, we're gonna start a campaign to get that back. Because that is South Brunswick land. And so far, it's fallen on deaf ears. But that doesn't mean we're gonna give up. Pretty soon we'll have a petition with your name on the top of it. Okay,
So the other
so
one,
anyway, what I'm saying about that church is that they would probably accept Reverend Miller in as a speaker.
Yeah, I would say so.
so I just mentioned Kingston here, and also because, historically it's important because George Washington, went over to Rocky Hill right past the church.
Right.
So, yeah.
And then Miller would not be invited to this church.
No,
Did
this
you
would be
give
in
me
the
the
conservative-
biography of Henry Heaps, the preacher? Somebody gave it to me just
It
recently.
wasn't me.
Wow. He was
Heaps goes way
preacher
back.
here when I came here.
Yeah. Do you know what? His name is carved on the Van Dyke house by the British Dragoons that took over the house during the Revolutionary War.
Really?
Seal and I visited there to look at the carvings on the stone. They did it with a saber.
Wow.
And nobody knows about it. And it's right there, because I had to pull some of the vines away in order to see it. I got permission from one of the descendants of the people who ran the nursery, the tree nursery.
Flemmer?
The
Yeah.
Flemmers.
William Flemmer.
Okay, she was living in the house, but she was going into a facility pretty soon after that. And we got a tour of the house, and then I got permission to go outside and look at the stones where the carvings were, and that name was in there. So yeah, Kilroy was here, and he put his name on it.
Henry Heaps.
That was added after, of course, many years of the Dragoons.
He was in the golden age,
Yeah.
church,
Now
after World War II.
That house is technically in Plainsboro. But that's another one that's right on the border.
Which one?
The house where the Van Dyke house.
Uh,
It's one of the first stone houses built in colonial times.
the Van Dyke house?
Yeah, it's the Van Dyke
Is
family.
that off
had
of
it
Sharp
first.
Road
The
or?
Van Dyke house.
No,
across
you're
Davidson
thinking
Mill.
of the,
Yeah,
you're thinking of the Van Dykes on Davidson Mill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, the family had a branch
Oh,
over.
okay.
Mapleton Road.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mapleton Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you go, you know where St. Joe's Seminary thing is?
Yeah.
Just before that, down from the corner, there's a stone house, a lot of hedge and stuff, stone house, and that was where the Dragoons took over the house.
Okay.
And Van
okay.
Dyke at that time, in there was a mason, and he used to have his meetings in there. And so that's a real historic house, but we don't own it, that's the Plainsboro house. But those scratches and so forth on those stones, they're really something, and nobody does anything about it, nobody cares, and so forth. And the weather will take care of them after a time, and that'll
Oh,
be
yeah.
it, forget about it.
I like to
And
see it.
my great uncle died of typhoid and without firing a shot in the Civil War. He died at Bowling Green, Kentucky,
Oh,
and they got his body back up to be buried by a four-sided stele with his sister, father, and mother, and he buried around this one stele. I got to visit that about 5-6 years ago
oh,
with a family history buff of my father's family out in Michigan, and just the fact that you can keep what this cousin did. She had some big, broad, white chalk type stuff and rubbed it over the stone that has a little
Okay, yeah,
biography
rubbings.
of the
We
one
call
that
it
died in
rubbings.
the war.
yeah,
How old he was, how many, at the age of so many years, so many months,
yeah,
and maybe so many days, and where he died, and so.
right.
And yeah, he was.
Yeah, we have a lot of stones in South Brunswick where it's too late.
Mm.
You can't, the rubbings
I got a
won't come
picture
up
of
with
that
anything.
after the rubbing had been done, so the letters stood out.
Yeah,
I've got, in fact, I want to show
so
that
it's like
with
a
you.
negative.
Yeah, yeah.
In photography, yeah. Okay, and Cranberry, of course, would again be another conservative Presbyterian. Tight strings from New Brunswick, Cranberry to Kingston and so forth. Miller may have preached in
Dr.
here, but
Slack was
probably in his
actually
early
Miller,
years.
actually,
Really?
before they started the one in Dayton.
Wow.
Huh.
Dr. Slack was a member of the
Slack.
Cranberry
Okay,
Presbyterian Church, and then he started the church in Dayton.
yeah, there were several people in South Brunswick that went to the Cranberry Church, yeah.
A lot of the farmers that are still around, that's kind of their church, home base, and people like I just said Christmas mail. In an insurance business, he started a farm boy. Come on, live on Road Hall Road. Wife's name is Jenny Warren Tandem. Boy, come on, thank you. It takes that long for God I know to. Thank you. I call her.
Still
Alexis.
impressive, John.
It's an AI.
Still impressive.
Anyway, they do their own thing. Well, what can I say? Yeah, Warren Tandem, a very historical mind, and he sends out when one of these old people dies or something like that. We all get not Gmail, no,
An email.
email.
Yeah.
With the obit, and he
Uh-huh.
prepares for us and sends it to all the people that know who the old folks were.
Yeah,
I've been to a number of funerals there of people, the farmers from South Brunswick, for whom that was where the farmers went.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
I've got connections with that church too.
yeah,
sir.
well, you have to say that the Presbyterian Church is probably the anchor church of South Brunswick, with the various
Yeah.
ones they have.
Denomination.
And the Dutch Reform, I don't believe it's Dutch Reform anymore. I think it's something else.
He's
Well,
in that 6 mile
RCA,
run.
Yeah, the
RCA,
6 Mile Run.
it would be RCA is Reformed Church of America.
Yeah, is that
I
Dutch
think I think
Reform?
it's RCA now. Like the Methodist one from there's UMC, United Methodist Church, and then another. The Methodist is in there somewhere,
Right.
but the names get changed with various.
Yeah, this is an evolving thing.
Yeah.
You know, and the time of Miller there were these splits, as I say, the conservative and the liberal. And this is still an ongoing thing. Every once in a while, there's a splinter group or something that comes along.
Look,
That's
John, your
us.
name is still on there.
That's us, yeah. 50 years I was there.
You look good there, the church.
So you're saying that this was named after, in memory of the
I
daughter,
think it was Susan.
so Susan.
I think it was Susan, but
Yeah.
I'd have to look that up, which
Yeah.
one was which, because each one left some money to one
Right.
one of the three churches.
Did they not name it after Reverend Miller because he was controversial?
No, because she was there during the lifetime
Right.
of these key members.
Right,
Well, that would be 1938.
right.
when I gotta get something for it. I got it.
Some clock up stuff.
I got it clocked up.
I'm gonna make a copy for this for you.
I know, yeah. Thank you, thank you. In 38, we were the Presbyterian Church of Monmouth Junction, I guess at that point, because with the merger with Cumberland in 06, I believe.
Right,
You're right.
right. That's what I have on my
That's how
note.
we got in the back door.
Yeah,
We were not a member of the Presbyterian until then.
because when Cumberland joins the regular Presbyterian Church, then the
So
the
we were.
church in Monmouth
We
Junction.
were there. And before that, we were the Evangelical Church of Monmouth Junction, not Evangelical Presbyterian, just Evangelical Church.
Yeah,
And you can see the Episcopal architecture on there too.
Yeah, it's not.
Beyond that door to the right and down below, the cement for the basement is the 1899, what do you call it, the stone with the stuff.
Cornerstone,
Cornerstone, there's stuff, historical stuff from 1899 is in it.
you have a time capsule.
A time capsule.
There's a cornerstone, so it's still there then.
So you
Those
got-
Randy,
people
we're
make-
gonna have to go
Well,
over there. and hit
the
that.
new people bought lock, stock and barrel. We don't own anything there anymore.
Yeah, but that doesn't stop Randy and I. We don't, barriers and fences and so on don't bother us.
Yeah, well, now I have connections with the police department because I'm their chaplain. So if I get a call in the middle of the night, some people claim they know you
Right,
and they were skulking around.
yeah, Marcella and Belding.
I think you need to come along, John. You say you forgot, you left something at the church and you need to get it.
Right,
But
it
I
happens to be behind a stone.
I just,
Oh, there
Oh
you
my
are.
goodness, you're the young guy.
There he is.
but I just wanted to point out that we also have the interview I did with you a few years ago. So here's something from the home news. But we also have an interview here. There you are doing some of the other things. This is your magic show. I don't know where this was. Maybe it's somewhere in the municipal building. But you can watch an interview with John that I did. What's about 3 years ago now. So we have an interview on YouTube, and if anybody's interested, I can send you the link. But it's on the South Brunswick Historical
Society.
Society.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at the kid's eyes in the audience,
Yeah.
the amazement.
Yeah.
Now, which trick am I doing here? I should know what it is.
It looks like you're about ready to cut
I-
that girl's hand off.
No, I think what's gonna happen is she's gonna pull a stocking out of an empty board or something like that. Wow. My eyesight's
Looks
not that
happy.
good. Actually, maybe get closer. I should know which trick that was. But
But you have to get ready for the Cultural and Arts Center, to put on a magic
she'll
show.
be right here in this building.
Vicky
Yeah.
said it looks like the high school cafeteria. Yeah.
Well, for our country fair, we had it at the
Yeah.
high school one time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that's-
those are younger kids.
I did
Yeah.
a magic show there.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. So then, if we're gonna stop it now. We're
I
gonna.
think that's it,
Yeah.
unless people have questions.
Yeah,
If anybody has a question.
but if you have questions, and you can either put them in the chat, or it'd be better if you emailed me, or you can ask now. But if not, thanks.
I have a question.
Sure.
John, what was put in the time capsule in the cornerstone? Do you know?
Well, it would have been a newspaper article and some coins from the time. I don't know any kind of artwork, but I know I did see an article that Mrs. Emens, she was the local news writer for the Cranberry what?
Press.
Press,
Yeah.
Cranberry Press. I did articles for them too, but mostly what's going on, promoting something. What she did, so-and-so served tea at so-and-so's picnic and details like that, important stuff. And more important when you realize all the names that are in those articles. Yeah, Mrs. Emens was the keeper of the history for us all.
Okay, and she's the one that told you about the time capsule.
Well, I got a real page of a newspaper from, I don't think it was they weren't photocopied very much in her younger years. Later, I don't know if she had a way of photocopying or not, That's a pretty recent thing.
Yeah.
I may have it, but you see how I have to totally go through every box. I got, maybe over 100 boxes.
Well, we have some history for you to carry on the tradition. This is stuff that we've been working on. And you might be interested in that. I have a slave census from 1790 and the regular census, because we don't really have a census, so we had to do our own. And then you'd be interested in this because this goes back to your childhood, prehistoric South Brunswick. So I think you'll like that. And then the places, you'll probably be familiar with several of those.
So
But anyway, what I wanted to say at the end was, if anybody wants the music that was in memoriam of George Siegel's 100th birthday,
yeah.
this is the AI music. All you have to do is give me your email address and I'll send it to you. Or you can ask for my email address and then I will make sure that you request it from me and then I can send it to you. So if anybody wants that, just say so and we'll try to work that out. But that was done when Rena Siegel, George Siegel's daughter, visited here, and we had a Zoom conference.
After he died, I forget what the reason was. Carol Lowen, who would be a cousin of hers, I guess,
Mhm.
and I went for Shiva.
Mhm.
And at a later time, I forget what the reason was why I was there. Of course, and Carol has died now several years ago.
You went to the house
The house.
on Davidson Mill.
Yeah, and I think she gave me a cup of coffee, something like that. And
Did you get to see
what we were going to do, and maybe we did, was to take some stones out to the cemetery and put them on Carol's.
Right, that's the Jewish thing to do, yeah.
And we were going
No
to do that.
flowers.
There was a lot of sadness in Carol's life, and they're all gone now, that family.
Yeah.
But the Siegels, yeah, Rena, and I thought she was a pretty classy young lady. But
Well, yeah, we use present tense. She still is.
and I've lost track of her.
Yeah, well,
What's
Rena's there.
If she would join my motor pool, then I'd get to know her. And she's one of the motor people that made it possible for me to get to where I need to get.
Yeah.
And like here, and I can't get to pick and choose where I'm going to go unless there's somebody that's willing to get me there. And
Okay.
I do hire somebody when I'm down and out and I've got a medical appointment. There's nobody in the motor pool available. There's a lady I pay. I do that some also. But whatever. But I would appreciate that. And if you'd like, you don't have anybody that's the counterpart. I know you're in a place of what you're doing, what she would be doing if you were here. But this may not be your cup of tea, but I think it would be her cup of tea.
Is that a copy for us, or do we make a copy?
I would, if you could make. I can't even get my. It's on a disc or something electronic. I have no
copy of it.
Yeah,
I'll make a copy. Yeah.
There's a lot of pages there.
Let me finish this up.
I'll leave it with you.
Okay.
You know how to get a hold
But
of
I just wanted to point out that the Miller Memorial Home, the building is still kind of serving. It's not the same thing, but it says in the service of mankind. So it's a type of religion. I'm not even sure of exactly.
It's a Hindu temple.
It's a Hindu temple, but like the name of it, I'm not sure about that. So it still serves. It's kind of nice that it still serves as a religious place, you know. So I wanted to include that.
Terry, does that have a historical landmark designation?
It does not. It is listed in the Hunter report, but it's not individually.
Would this be okay to loan you and you keep it a while? And
Yeah.
Is that something on the burner? In other words, a future consideration?
It's certainly
Yeah.
hopeful.
So I want to thank everybody for coming out, and this is another program that's coming up in February. It's about this place in New Jersey called Timbuktu, and I'll put this out to the list too. So this is a presentation that's going to happen over at the Senior Center. So I just want to thank everybody for coming out, and good night.
Okay, thank you, Randy.
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna run a copy of this off for,
For John. All right, thank you.
Wow.
Wow, what other tidbits can